What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Hi, welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jackie Russo and our extra awesome, super favorite, incredible guest, Dr. Tricia Groff. Michael, when you and I prepped for this, we talked about how good it could be, and it surpassed my expectations.
By prep, you mean I got the email and read it right before we got on?
You texted and said, what are we going to talk about? And I sent you a text back.
That
That
one,
was
yes.
prep. That's
yes.
prep. And then you named it the business of psychology. That was good.
Yes. And we kind of know, well, we know Tricia. So it was easier to kind of get into that. And by the way, that was a much better intro. We're better on Zoom. I don't know why. When we do it, it's not good, man. I mean, we're going to keep trying, but the last one, if you heard it, that's why we did it live in my office versus on Zoom. And Zoom is it's like a bubble of comfort. Like I can see myself and I feel comfortable with that versus not being able to. And I'm just so uncomfortable with that. This is much better.
But you're more comfortable seeing yourself is so weird to me. I bury myself, so I don't see me. I just see y'all.
It's not seeing myself. It's not like I want to see myself. I know what's going on. But then when I look at myself, I'm forward the other way. I'm on the side. Anyway, it's just the whole, and it feels like we're live and I don't know. This is
okay.
Better.
Well, I'm going to get back to our introduction, and I hope this whole thing stays in because, as always, the good stuff is the stuff you want to cut.
I do not edit these things. They come straight up. I don't have the time. I'm too busy with other things. So I pull it down, I put it up, and we're running. So if there's bad stuff in the middle,
training your puppy, you have well trained your puppy, and so that's where you're spending all your time right now is on getting.
And I'm surprised if anybody's still listening right now. They're probably already turned out.
No. They're going to want to listen to this because Dr. Tricia Groff is a licensed psychologist who provides executive coaching and consulting for high achievers and their organizations. She grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, graduated with honors from Millersville University, obtained her PhD at Ball State. She believes that business ultimately relies on human factors. Whether it's the sales team, the marketing plan, or navigating a board of investors, humans drive tangible business results. We're in a people business, Michael. Thus, the lack of human due diligence lies at the root of many business failures. When not in business mode, Dr. Groff is passionate about living well. She challenges the status quo, finds happiness in small things, and loves driving fast. She is my kindred spirit.
Sounds a lot like psychology of branding.
That is such a great title.
Let's get going.
All right.
Good job. Thank you.
No, this was awesome. These are the ones I love to do.
I know. She was awesome. So
well, these are the ones that we get the best feedback on because people feel like they're just listening to professionals talk about a topic that they care about. And welcome to the show, Dr. Tricia Groff.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
We are so excited. I want to just provide a little bit of a setup to our listeners because usually we have the great fortune of these incredible guests who find us, or maybe we identify somebody that we think is doing something great in the world and we want to tell their story. But we have the distinct advantage of having actually met you in person. You went from being a rock star in my computer on 21 Hats, founding member, monthly Zoom meetings in those collaborative spaces that I find so beneficial, to actually getting to spend time together in 21 Hats conference in Fort Worth, where you and Michael got to meet for the first time. And now the three of us have a little love fest, and it's awesome.
I feel exactly the same way.
Well, we're glad you're here. And so for everybody who's like, wow, they sound real comfortable and casual with each other. Yeah. I want to set it up that this will not be one of those formal. So tell us about you, because we already know. So we're going to jump right into it. Right before we started recording, we were talking about the psychology of branding, because that's sort of, I think, going to be our setup for today's topic. And your background lends itself so well to that. Michael and I could talk about the branding part, but you on the psychology part, I mean, this is what you are. You're a business psychologist. So tell our listeners, please, what that means and what you do.
And yes, exactly. To hear, let's talk about what you do first and who you are in a little bit. So people that don't know you, and then we'll jump right into the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. That's perfect. Because sometimes I have a problem explaining who I am and what I do. I think doing it gives a clearer example. But this is who I am is a somewhat contrarian. I'm not contrary to, and I know that that wasn't, that's not like I'm a psychologist. I mean, yes, I am, but the way that I think is to look at what's around me and challenge the question of, are we doing this because it's the way we've always done things, or because this is actually going to make something better? And I think about that way with everything. And then the other thing that's critical in terms of who I am is also with problem solving. Are we looking at a root cause for anything? I've problem solved cars this year. Like it's what are we looking at? Is it a surface level manifestation of a problem or the root cause? And that comes out. So when I am a licensed psychologist. I've been in the field for a long time. I've had iterations, various lives within that. But when I look at psychology, all of it has been around humans and behavior. And so in the counseling, going back to what I did when I was doing traditional counseling, if somebody was like, I'm having this problem, that thought process of, like, what is creating the problem? What can we do to make it better? And in the intersection of psychology and business, I've always been interested in psychology in organizations and how that drive things. Because when I think of psychology, I don't think of, okay, we're only talking about emotions or feelings or personality. That's definitely critical and it drives a lot of things. But I also think about, well, how do you train your cat and dog? If you train your cat and dog this way, you can train the people around you in a certain way. I think about, so there was a conversation, and I will get to the other questions and keep this short because I could go on forever about the conversations I had. But, I had somebody that was showing me the financials for their organization. And they're like, I need the CEO to change this thing so that we can hit all of the numbers, the projections, and make the board happy. And I was looking at that, and I was like, but the CEO does not process information that way. So if you want changes in your organization to get the revenue targets, to make the investors happy, the messaging has to happen this way. So I always see that integration of the human factors, and then it plays out in different arenas. I forget the rest of the questions.
Well, and it seems like on that, and we've talked a lot about that with everybody that we end up talking to. Some of the topics that always come up, it always ends up being an internal conversation. How much branding has changed to be, especially in corporations in the B2B space as well. We're spending so much time not just talking to the masses or to potential clients. We're talking internally. We're trying to get people on the same page. We're trying to make them understand who we are and what we do. And because if that's not working, then it seems to affect everything else that comes after.
Yep.
I think so. Because I was just in a leadership meeting the other week, and afterwards, I'm very passionate about potential and optimizing pretty much everything. And so when I see an easy fix, I get passionate. So anytime on this one, I get passionate or I sound almost angry, that's what's going on. I'm like, but I want it to be better. So anyway, there was this leadership meeting, and afterwards I texted one of the co-founders and I was like, do people understand why your product is different? Do they understand what the competitive edge is? Because if they don't understand the competitive edges, how in the world are they going to market to anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so why is it so hard for people to understand? Where is the psychology of the business people who think everyone's my audience, because if I go narrow, I'm going to lose opportunity, instead of realizing that when I can carve out a niche, it'll actually make me rich? Where's the disconnect, Tricia? How do we fix the people?
When you said, where is the disconnect? I'm just going to talk out loud and interrupt me, because
Bring it.
I don't have a clear answer. And this is why. I think it's a bigger cultural phenomenon. There's two things. I mean, there is a psychology involved. The one is that bigger is better and that more is better. Mm-hmm. And there is a history of frustration where I would try to explain my business model to people. and like to people, meaning if I wanted assistance with marketing or sales. And it was fascinating because like it was more is better. And I'm like, no, more is not better. That's not where I'm going. And Jackie, I ran into it over and over and over again. People don't even realize, you talk about turning around way business. They're like, wait, what? You're turning down, like it's, I see it an underlying premise that more is better in conversations that I've had, even with other business owners or business people, because I think the psychology is fear. If we have more, we feel like, okay, it makes us happier. There's all of this stuff going on. I think that if it gets narrow, you do risk like, oh, I'm going to turn away people. But then what if there's more people? And when I say people, I'm talking about but I always think like whether that means product or people, you know what I'm saying? Like business, if we focus narrowly on business, yes, we will have to say no. And then I believe that there's an underlying fear that people have about what happens next. So there's a safety net. That would be my
it's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, and also I think that deep inside, you really have to believe and know that your service or your product is better. And if you really believe that, no, we are better and this is why, then it becomes, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but it does become, then how do we let people know that it exists? How do we market it? How do we reach those people?
That is God. Oh my God. We've been having these same conversations because we're a business that's been around over 20 years. I would say we're moderately successful. We've been the ups and downs of this and that. We have continued to grow. We have clients, really just to brag on us, we're all over the country. We're doing really, really cool things right now. And this past week, we set out this campaign for ourselves, and we didn't get the results we wanted right away. And immediately, Jackie and I both, we just had a meeting about it. We went into somewhat of a panic mode, like not for the future of the world.
I wasn't panicked. I was sad. I was sad that we've done all this work.
And for you, and you may speak for yourself, Jackie, but for me, I am that. I am immediately going, man, maybe we're not what we say we are. Maybe we're not. I mean, we're now it's like, oh God, what are we doing? They're going to all find out. They're going to finally figure it out that we don't have a freaking clue, And so there's that kind of fear, which is always there in certain types. I am that type of, and then at the same time, I am very confident in what we do. And I will stand on that. I will go toe to toe with you. I will tell you why it's great and why we're better and why you should trust us with your business, all those things. But it doesn't take much for that doubt to creep in. And you're like, oh, wait, maybe I'm wrong.
I think so. I think it's a normal human emotion. And I also think that it's unusual, possibly for a lot of people, to keep the path in spite of the fear. And say, well, that this is our foundation. And I know, okay, so one of the things that I do is I tell people all the time stuff they already know, but I am open. I'm like, I know that you already know this, but I'm just, because this is what we're doing, I'm just talking to you guys and reminding you what I know that you know about marketing is that you never know the actual effects of the campaign on the week after, right?
Right.
I mean, disagree with me, but truly, because I've had some like impacts of showing up that I didn't realize, like that were not realized until years later. And sometimes it was huge. It just took time to, for all the factors to align.
Jackie's has so many stories about that. Getting people, and for us too, when many years ago, when we really got into more branding instead of just the traditional advertising agency model, it was trying to sell people on the long play. It was like, look, you're going to get short-term results, but we're in it for the long play. We want people to, we want to saturate them and get to know you. And when they do invest in you and they do jump on board, then you got a client for life. They're buying in. They're joining the tribe. That's what we want. That's what branding it really is. It's not for that short-term transactional thing that is devalued and often discounted, right?
That's actually why I this is going to sound like an advertisement for you guys, but what you just said, Michael, is why I trust you. So I'm passionate about marketing because I see these fundamental psychology principles that underlie it. And I had so many frustrating conversations with marketing people that I wanted to use their services. And, at some point I was like, they don't get it. And like for me specifically, it's always the long play. It's the way I'm wired. It's like it's the way I'm wired. It's that, I don't want to waste people's time, emotion, and money. So I'm always looking at like fit. So when I'm looking at fit, it's a long thing. It's not a short, churn, quick and burn mentality. And so I just love I just love that. And if I can throw in two other reasons of why I trusted you guys, because I don't know if you know this about me. And actually, speaking of marketing, I'm trying to be ruthlessly honest on this podcast because I think it's helpful. I have a very high bar for who I trust. I have high expectations. I don't walk around carrying that, but I do. And I also assess very quickly. And I used to minimize that because people are like, oh, are you assessing me? And I always wanted to make sure, like, no, I'm not assessing you. I'm not getting into your space. And I'm not. However, when I met you guys, first of all, Jackie, when you were talking, I don't know, you were just saying things that I was like, yeah, this is a person that actually thinks underneath of the surface, underneath of the tactics, and she gets it. Like I can talk to her and she gets it.
You know what it was? It was us talking about the herd mentality, I think. That's when I feel like we really connected. I was talking about my kind of philosophy that it's not unique to me. I think it's a common theory in branding world, that humans are a herd species. And so we cling together in a community for safety and security and comfort, which as a human, I totally get and agree with and feel comfortable in. I mean, that's how we survive high school. You have to have your people. But in business, we have to undo all that DNA programming and stand out to be seen. Otherwise, you blend in. So, yeah, sure, blend in for safety, but stand out for business. And that is a hard thing for people to do.
And you know what I would say to that is that, and I'm going to come back to a compliment, like something I noticed about Michael also, which was awesome. So just like hold your breath, Michael. But that herd mentality, that's what I ran into with marketing. Specifically, I was like, my clientele are 3 to 5% of the population. So my strategies are not for the 95%. And what was interesting is that what the messaging, it wasn't the messaging, it was the recommendations. It's hard when you're fighting against, it's like, I know my people, I know my business. You're giving me recommendations for the 95%. What I am doing is for the 5%. I could go on forever, but that's probably, well, I guess that's where we connected. Thank you, Jackie, for getting that because, what's fascinating to me is that a lot of people have heard of Seth Godin, hopefully. A lot of people have read The Purple Cow, may know about it. But I also see that break between sort of head knowledge of like, what does this mean? And then how does that carry through in our practices? And then the other part that I noticed about Michael, you didn't know this, you don't know what's coming, but, and it's a thank you. I respect people that are aware of other people and the situations and the context. And I think that also goes into marketing, like who is around me? What are they experiencing? What are they listening? What are they seeing? And so I forget why I liked Michael right away. I just instantly, he made sense to me. I was like, okay, yeah. Oh, our fellow introversion. So that was one part of it for sure. And then there was this moment where the whole group was talking about like kids and something with that. And somebody said to me, do you have kids? And I was like, no. And I was okay with it. But Michael had just met me and he had this awareness. What he did was he turned the conversation and then I said, he's like, I wanted to make sure that you were included. He was aware of, hey, this person doesn't, oh, it makes me want to choke up. But there was that awareness of this person doesn't connect to the conversation. Can I shift it or can I add something in to make sure that she feels included? I have so much respect for that.
Oh,
yeah,
it's making me blush,
like that.
and I know you're making my day. I so needed this conversation, Trish. I feel like I'm in therapy right now. You make me feel good.
But seriously, it takes an extra awareness. So it made me trust you as a human being. I was like,
I appreciate that.
And then when I mentioned the word that trust is that if we're talking about marketing, it's important for agencies to be able to get you or get your company. Like, how else are they going to be able to do it?
It's hard. I mean, it's so hard because, and we have some great clients right now that really they do work with us, and we're very, very proud of that and proud of those relationships. And we've been really integrated with them, going to their retreats and really kind of getting into their culture, and which has made the work so much better. It's essential, really, because if not, you end up being an order taker and you end up And I get it from a company owner. I think it's very hard because you have to turn over your baby to somebody and trust that they're going to take care of it the way you want to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of the deal. You know, when I go to the doctor, I don't question what he tells me. I'm gonna have to believe it because he knows more than me. Think about advertising and branding, and is generally we see it every day, and we're so integrated into it that we're all kind of experts on it. You know, we just don't facilitate it the way that we do.
No, I'm going to disagree with that, Michael. We're not experts on it. You and I are experts on it. Tricia is an expert on it, but the everyday person out on the street, they're not experts on it. Having an opinion doesn't give you expertise. So we all have opinions on it because we're surrounded by it and that we think that we know, but they don't know. So no, I'm not going to diminish the professionalism that we've earned and the expertise that we've accrued by giving all of us that title.
Yeah, well, it's familiar. Let's put it that way. You know,
It is,
it's very
but it doesn't
familiar.
make it right.
But it talks about. Go ahead, Trish.
No, I'm just laughing because when you said that, there was a social media post that I wanted to go from its origin and repost it. And it was related to branding and everything. And I was being hard on my assistant, honestly, inside. I was like, how could you not know this? So I texted 7 of my friends that I think are smart people. And they got the wrong answer. I was like, okay. Okay,
Yeah, if everybody gets it wrong. Yeah.
One of the biggest things, and you mentioned it earlier, was emotion, and it's kind of like one of the things that we talk about in our language, and we talk about emotional connections to brands. You know, our definition of a brand is really a gut reaction to something or emotional connection to something, and I think people get afraid of that word emotion. I'm curious your take on that from a psychological standpoint. You know, because emotion doesn't mean just happy or sad; it just means an emotion. An emotion can mean so many things, right? What are you passionate about? What do you like? What do you dislike? What are you happy about? What makes you sad? All those things are emotions, you know, and I think that's what connects you to businesses and the relationships you have through them. And it could be a personal relationship. It could be a relationship with an experience. It could be a relationship with success of a product. How did that product or service help you in your life? How does it, like I mentioned earlier, how does it represent you? How does it make you feel? Are you proud to wear that and recommend it and say, you know what, let me recommend this? You know, this is my recommendation. This is something that I've worked with, and I'm going to put my name on that. I want to put my name on the line to recommend this company or this product or this service because it makes me feel empowered. You know, that's the crux of all this. Like, you know, if you can get to that point, that kind of advocacy, I mean, you win, right?
Absolutely.
But emotion, that's what I asked originally. I'm sorry. So how do you, when you get into marketing and advertising, you know, how do you not get, like, people are afraid of that. I think we're afraid of getting to that. Either you go to full tilt and you'd be like, I'm going to be so dramatic that it's like over the top, or so goofy that it's just silly. But that when you find that sweet spot, that's when it's usually pretty good.
Yeah. You know, the reason I said absolutely was, first of all, what you said made sense. And I was just like, if I give a full response 3 hours later, the podcast listeners will be like, oh my gosh, this is she's still talking. All right. I'm going to go personal first, and then how it, like, what I think about emotion and marketing. I grew up with mentors around me that sent a clear message that to be taken seriously, you should subvert emotions. And I have gotten a lot better at undoing that. I am still undoing it. It is much more of the old school corporate realm. Wear the suit, wear the earrings, put your hair up figuratively and metaphorically. Don't let the vulnerability out. I said old school, but my brain deviated to some of the worst advice I ever heard in my life from a coach who told someone that they should be so unemotional at work that if their kid died, nobody would know. And so there is a theme, I believe, that I've felt personally strongly that to be taken seriously, the emotion should be pushed aside. And what I will say to that, and then I'll go to the broader thing also, is that, you know, the whole, it's funny, the jargon for it, where you say up, like, here's your one-liner, the elevator pitch. So I worked with some of those, but there were several meetings that I attended where I would introduce myself. And I said, basically my name. And I said, honestly, instead of telling you what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you about what I was thinking about this week. And it was usually something related to a client or myself, or like something that was heartfelt. And after that is when people would come up. And it was a noticeable difference in terms of people wanting to talk to me, wanting my card, wanting to know more about what I do. And it was just, and it had nothing to do. It had nothing to, I mean, I was connecting with the human experience versus like, hi, I'm Tricia. I'm a licensed psychologist. I work with business, blah, 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 et cetera. And then what I've noticed, because I actually work really well. I'm personally analytically. This morning, I realized that a way to describe myself is that I'm an engineer that cries at TV commercials because I have a very logical side of my brain. And I think, and I've worked with people that are, emotion is messy and it can't be clearly defined. And so for a lot of people, I think it feels safer. So that's the answer that I wanted to do my personal stuff first, Michael, because it wasn't good. It did not serve me well, because what I've seen is the opposite is true. Emotion is the most powerful thing you can use. I believe that people try to avoid it because it's messy and it's also vulnerable. Like it makes us.
I wrote that down and I was talking because I want to come back to that. You said vulnerability. I love that. And I love the way you described it because it makes total sense, because you have to kind of get a little naked sometimes in your messaging and your talking points and all these different things. And because that leads to authenticity, that leads to likability, that leads to being real. And not everybody's really comfortable with that. Businesses aren't really comfortable with that. And we do a lot of B2B work. So it's, we talk about bringing a B2C mentality to a B2B world. Part of that is that it's undressing a little bit and not being so businessy all the time, even though we're dealing with serious things. We deal with a lot of serious clients, and we should never water down what they're doing and how they're doing it. At the same time, how do we talk in real language? How do we be conversational? How do we, talk about realities of the work that we do and the connections that we have and how you're solving problems for people? And, we talk about, how do you make the customer the hero? Well, you do that by being a little bit more vulnerable and really connecting with them,
Yeah, I agree. And I have a trick that you guys may already use that might help the listeners. When I'm working or speaking to people or in a group, whatever, where people they don't want emotion or touchy-feely, I will own that up in front and go okay, guys, this is going to be very uncomfortable. So this is emotional and gooey. I promise there's a rationale. Sometimes I have to give the rationale anywhere, but to get buy-in, from people that, so I'm going to make that shorter. So if I'm going to give advice, which if you're working with corporate people that are just we do not want the emotional aspect, I suggest owning that and saying, I'm going to ask you to do something that's very uncomfortable. And then the other thing that I do is it's called, the jargon is normalization, which is basically, you're not the only person, and people feel much more safe. And so then for me, and I exaggerate, that's my style, but it's also true. I say, I work with a lot of organizations and people that really hate emotion. So believe me, you're not the only one. And that creates that safety. So people don't feel alone and feeling discomfort. And then the other thing that I do, in case this helps anywhere, I'm yeah, some people are scared, but people hate admitting to being scared. So I'm sure that scared is the wrong word. It's stressed. I'm sure this is probably stressful. And then 45 minutes later, I was yeah, it's actually a little scary. So there's some tricks that you can do on the front end to get people into that emotional space just by owning that it's uncomfortable.
I like that. And that's, it's one of the things from I do a lot of writing, and I wasn't trained as a writer. I was a designer, but I ended up being a good writer. I'm not writing books or anything like that, but I'm really good at headlines and quick things like that. And the reason why is my grammar's horrible. I have to get spell checked forever. Nothing gets out of my office unless 10 people have seen it. But what I'm good at is language and communication and being very conversational. And I try to tell other writers that I work with and on our team, I'm you have to stop trying to be an advertising writer or a marketing writer, because as soon as you put that hat on, you lose the battle, because then you start talking about one-stop shop and buy one, whatever. And you can't help it. And good writers are turned into bad writers that way. I'm stop it. You have to stop that. You have to really take your head out of that game and start to really program yourself into being real. And I find myself too, even for certain clients, where I kind of am pulled into that space because I have to, because they insist on it, because they want that, because it's appropriate. But I'm always fighting the fight to say something a little different, to change the conversation, to be a little more unique, to be a little more vulnerable in our messaging. And again, it doesn't have to be happy, sad. It can just be real, and being real talk that where people can hear it and say, oh my God, he's talking to me. Now I connect. Now there's a bridge.
But your content is so good that we are happy to overlook the opportunities that you give us to appreciate new inventive spellings of words
I was
we've
about to say,
learned in grade school.
I didn't know if you were pointing out the words that I often misspell, which is
I was
opportunity,
going to.
which is appreciation, which is
Yes. Yes. We have a hit list that they like hang in the kitchen, and everybody knows if Michael sends you something to proof, look for these words because he never spells these words right. It's total mental block.
I was listening to your previous podcast, and honestly, I was just like, Michael, don't worry about this AI, will take care of it. Like, that was one thought. And then I had another thought because I was really resonating with Michael, like with the part about the writing and like who you're connecting to. And I just remembered this conversation I had with a client because I wrote a book that was basically what are the conversations that I have 100 times a day that I can put in a book and people can just like look it up. And I was struggling because I had to break all of the rules of academia. I was excellent in school and I knew how to write well and cite well and do very, very dry, boring, excellent, tedious research. But that wasn't my reader. So it was literally like, so I was talking to a client about it, about what style, I was just, and he said this, and I trust him so much. And he said, I guess it depends if you're writing for your clients or you're writing for your academians. But honestly, in writing, I remember thinking that anybody that trained me, I would be embarrassed because I was breaking all of the rules in order to connect with my audience, which is what I wasn't thinking when Michael started talking. But like when you go through that, when you said through the advertiser language, like there's a layer in between that keeps you from connecting to how people actually think and talk.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the AI thing, and I hate to get on that topic. It comes up constantly, and I hate that it comes up constantly. But we have to talk about it because it's real and it's in our face, and it's something we're having to deal with. But the reality is, like I talk about it, I think we're living in the age of mediocrity because of AI. Now, eventually, it will be the age of something else, and it will become what it's supposed to be. But right now, people are just learning how to use it, and it's smart enough to do it well, but not great. And so people are constantly, well, I just threw it in ChatGPT, or I just threw it in ChatGPT. I went to this conference at the University of Florida a few months back for a client, and it was a bunch of lawyers, and they couldn't wait. Every single speaker for 2 days got up, and they couldn't wait to say, I did my entire presentation on AI. It was like, and they were so proud of it. I'm like, are you proud of garbage? I mean, like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was just so generic and so normal and so expected. And it just killed me to watch all these over and over and over again.
And it goes back to the herd mentality. Go, Jackie.
Point of clarification, our client's presentation was not done by AI and was not crap.
It was not, and I should have said that. I know I'm gonna have to edit all that out now.
No, you can keep it in.
This whole section's gonna be gone.
No, keep it in. But just distinguish the fact that our client stuff was real and good.
Well, our client didn't get us his presentation right before, so we couldn't help him much. And he did it himself. He did not use AI, though.
Guys, I used to do marital counseling.
And you might be again right now.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I remember you guys talking about that on previous podcasts. I remember the lawyer.
All the podcasts.
Okay. So I'm going to switch it. I'm going to take it to another level and say that to me, that discussion is relevant. I'm not disagreeing, just in case you're like, I agree, and accurate, but it goes into the bigger problem of marketing, back to the herd mentality of people doing what everybody else is doing and not understanding the degree to which it reduces their power. Like just like so you're using a specific example of it makes everybody look the same. I agree. And whenever you have colors that are the same, or the website, or like where everything, or the language. Oh my gosh, I was doing consulting with a business expert a little while ago, and he turned me into the thought about like business jargon. He was a business writer for years for a popular magazine. I don't have permission, so I'm not going to mention his name, but he was talking about these overused jargons. Now I hear it all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so tired of hearing this word What does this word mean? Could we please use another language to describe what we're talking about? So I feel like there's such a loss when people just start adapting and doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, and you have to, and Jackie's a big advocate. I'll give her credit of adapting to technology and jumping on board with things. She's a first adopter. I mean, trust me, she 10 years ago she was a Mac hater, and now everything on her desk is Macintosh. Her phone, her watch, her computer. I mean, everything. She is full on Mac person, but she really was making fun of me for it at one time. But she saw the curve, she saw how it enhanced her life until she became an adopter, right? But technology wise, if there's something new out, she's going to try it. She's going to jump in. I like to circle around it a little bit, but from an agency standpoint, we've been encouraging our team to look, try it, see it. It's not going away. How do we embrace it and use it as a tool, not as a crutch? And that's the biggest part. Jackie, disagree?
I don't. I was trying to decide if there was a compliment or an insult in there, and I just decided to take it as it is.
Since you guys are arguing, I'm going to argue with something that Michael said earlier.
Yes.
I'll just join in the argument, which was about like other people seeing you as the expert. And I don't think, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this. If we are seeking marketing agencies for our business, I do not think that we, so meaning me, myself, any of the listeners, should subvert our own knowledge of our business and our clientele and our product and our audience to a marketing agency that says, hey, I'm the expert, I know how to do this. Unless we know that they get us and they get our business. Because so I've just put a period there. Where it comes from is that I've had multiple interactions of people trying to get me to do things that were wrong for my business. And so if I would have said, okay, well, I sort of, disagree, but you're the expert, I'm going to go with it, I would have been shooting myself in the foot. And I will say it was hard for me. I think it's hard for people to trust like their own, like if you're inviting in another expert to help, but to stay true to your vision and your audience, if they're giving you advice, and yes, I can do examples that are wrong. Does that talk back to me if that got cloudy or didn't make sense, or if you have questions?
Jack?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. And I feel like as I was listening, I was thinking, were Michael and I arguing? Because I thought we were actually getting along. I thought this was one of our more pleasant conversations.
You're debating. So I'm debating. I'm debating, but for the point that in case there are listeners that struggle where they've gotten bad advice, and so they're torn between the bad advice of an expert and staying true to what they know about their business.
Yeah.
No, I think that's that is every day. I mean, because we're either coming on the heels of somebody who has a bad experience.
Huh?
Usually it's a bad experience. That's why they've left something, and we're picking up the pieces. We're having to earn trust. We're having to, well, my last person said this or this or this. So we're dealing with that a lot, of how to earn that trust. Or why should I trust you? The other person said this will work and it didn't, or this, or that kind of thing, right? But I think there's, we talk about that a lot too. How do you find the right partner, which is essential, just because they're great, they may not be great for you. I mean, you have to really connect with them and you have to have that chemistry, just like dating. I mean, it's like, you want to vibe.
Mm-hmm. We said about writing the book, and then several years later, you might end up doing a podcast with your spouse, and then you're like, are we debating or are we arguing? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, we learned early on that, like I said, I think that's what's business wise, what's made it work long term is that we realized that strife leads to good things. That conflict leads to good things, because at times it's just conflict. At times it may be personal, but at times it's two different sides. And if we're both fighting for the same thing, which is what's best for the client, then eventually we're going to compromise somewhere or the other, or listen to the other, because there's enough respect there earned. But we approach it from a very strategic and a very creative side. And I guarantee if we were all creative, we would not be here right now. Strategic, probably so, which would be a spawn, maybe. I don't know. Rewarding, but they, but I think there is that point. We've seen the results of it, so we know that it's worth the effort, if that makes sense.
That makes total. I love it.
It's
I
worth the
think
pain.
absolutely that deep belief that the struggle produces something better than automatically agreeing just to get along.
Yeah. I realized this is going to have to be a two-parter because I've got hours more questions to go through. I've checked 2 off my list of like 20. So here's what I want to suggest. I want us to give Tricia enough time to talk about her books. Because the people need to buy her books and know how to find her and be all up in her universe and world so they can be the better for it. And then we're going to put some time on the calendar for doing another part because this was too good to limit.
And Tricia, we've never had a 2-parter, so
Never.
This is high praise.
But this is going to be worth it because this is good stuff.
I could talk to you guys all day.
And I feel the same way.
And again, the reason I push back on assuming the experts is right when I started with trusting you is that I love the way your brains work. I just think that you instantly get to the core of what's going on instead of automatically doing what is the flavor of the day, so to speak, for people.
Thank you. I appreciate
that.
that.
We've definitely gotten better at that over time. I mean, for a long time, it was, okay, we got to pay bills. We'll do whatever. We'll take whatever, that kind of thing, And then as we got better at what we did and we got better at finding clients and really started identifying who they were, that was a big part of it. Jackie did that. I'm really proud of her for that because it was like, okay, let's talk about who we want. We want people that do this, and this. They listen, they contribute, they participate, they trust, they all these different things. They're willing to invest in themselves. And it was like, let's go find these people. And it's a little harder to find those people. I mean, we could take busy work, but it was like, let's go find the people that make us happy, that rewarding.
I'm gonna have to pause you, Michael. Thank you for the compliment, and yes, I agree. But Tricia has some great stories on exactly that topic, so I want to save the rest of that conversation for part 2. I want to tell people to go buy Relational Genius, the High Achievers Guide.
You just did a cliffhanger, Jackie.
Yes, I know. That's why people are going to come back for the second episode. The High Achievers Guide to Soft Skill Confidence in Leadership and Life, and is it Adlerian approach to self-confidence for high achievers, Tricia? Is that how I pronounce that?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's a workbook.
And
Sounds
both
fancy.
of these are on Amazon, and we're going to link both of these in the show notes. And we are going to invite everyone to come back for part 2 to talk about how to really find your right target audience. Because Tricia has a great story about working with an agency who did not see eye to eye on how to find the right people. And she was right, and they were wrong.
Of course.
It's so much fun. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. As always, I feel so energized by our time together, and I cannot wait to do it again.